Good morning friends, you are most welcome to Think Ice channel. Today we are going to discuss Ghatnachakra for environment. This topic is important for UPPSC 2023. Let us begin the topic. High level questions are: the National Green Tribunal Act 2010 was enacted in consonance with which of the following provisions of the Constitution of India? First is the right to a healthy environment construed as a part of right to life under Article 21, which is correct. Second is provisions of grant for raising the level of administration in the scheduled areas for the welfare of scheduled tribes under Article 275(1). Third is powers and functions of Gram Sabha as mentioned under Article 243A. Select the correct answer using the codes given below. Answer A, only one, is correct. The National Green Tribunal was established on 18th October 2010 under the National Green Tribunal Act 2010 for effective and expeditious disposal of cases relating to environmental protection and conservation of forests to provide the right to a healthy environment construed as a part of right to life under Article 21. It draws inspiration from the Constitution of India Article 21, which assures the citizens of India the right to a healthy environment. Notably, on 18th October 2010, Justice Lokeshwar Singh Panta became the first chairman, president, chairman, present chairman of NGT is Justice Adarsh Kumar Goyal. The National Green Tribunal NGT came into force in October 2010. National Green Tribunal NGT was established by the Government of India in 2010. The author of Green Development is W. M. Adams. William M. Adams is the author of the book Green Development, Environment and Sustainability in a Developing World. Its first edition was published in 1990. What is Rio Plus 20 conference often mentioned in the news? It is the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development. Rio Plus 20 is the short name for the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development. This conference took place in Brazil in June 2012 to mark the 20th anniversary of 1992 United Nations Conference on Environment and Development (UNCED) in Rio de Janeiro and the 10th anniversary of the 2012 World Summit on Sustainable Development (WSSD) in Johannesburg. In the year of 1997, the World Environment Conference was organized in Kyoto. In the year 1997, the World Environment Conference was organized in Kyoto, Japan. The Kyoto Protocol to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change was adopted in this conference, which came into existence on 16 February 2005. The Summit Plus 5 was held in 1997. In 1992, more than 100 heads of states met in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, for the first International Earth Summit. This summit was convened to address urgent problems of environmental protection and socio-economic development. The assembled leaders signed the Convention on Climate Change and Convention of Biodiversity, endorsed the Rio Declaration and Forest Principles, and adopted Agenda 21 for achieving sustainable development in the 21st century. The Commission on Sustainable Development (CSD) was created to monitor and report on the implementation of the Earth Summit Agreement. It was agreed that a 5-year review of Earth Summit progress would be made in 1997 by the United Nations General Assembly meeting in the special session. Accordingly, a special session of United Nations General Assembly was held from 23rd to 27 June 1997 in New York to take stock of how well countries, international organizations, and sectors of civil society have responded to the challenge of the Earth Summit. This meeting was known as Earth Summit Plus 5. Notably, Rio Plus 10 Summit was held in Johannesburg in 2002 and Rio Plus 20 was held in Rio de Janeiro in 2012. Consider the following statement. First is the Sustainable Development Goals were first proposed in 1972 by a global think tank called the Club of Rome. This is wrong statement. Next is the Sustainable Development Goals have to be achieved by 2030. It is right. Sustainable Development Goals were proposed in 2012 at Rio Plus 20. Hence, statement 1 is not correct. The Sustainable Development Goals are officially known as Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. These are a set of 17th aspirational global goals with 169 targets among them. Hence, statement 2 is correct. Who has propounded the concept of limits to growth? Club of Rome. In April of 1968, 30 people, including scientists, educators, economists, humanists, industrialists, and government officials, met at the Accademia di Lincei in Rome. The Club of Rome was born from this meeting as an informal organization. This concept of limits to growth was propounded by the Club of Rome. Given below, there are two statements, one labeled as assertion A and second is reason R. Assertion A, there is a positive relation between Human Development Index HDI and Sustainable Development Goals SDG ranking of Indian states. Reason R, the underlying dimension of Sustainable Development Goals target are closely related to education and health aspect. Select the correct answer using the codes given below. Both A and R are true and R is correct explanation of A. The underlying dimension of SDG targets are closely related to education and health aspect as evident in the positive correlation between HDI Human Development Index and SDG rankings of the Indian states. Hence both A and R are true and R is the correct explanation of A. Next is with the reference to the Global Alliance for Climate Smart Agriculture GACSA, which of the following statements are correct? GACSA is an outcome of the climate summit held in Paris in 2015. This is wrong. Second is membership of GACSA does not create any binding obligation. It is right. Third is India was instrumental in the creation of GACSA. That is also wrong. Statement 1 is incorrect because the concept of climate smart agriculture CSA was originally developed by FAO in 2010 through a paper Climate Smart Agriculture Policies, Practices and Financing for Food Security, Adaptation and Mitigation. In 2014, an alliance was set up with this issue as its focal point, the GASCA Global Alliance for Climate Smart Agriculture. Statement second is correct because membership in the alliance does not create any binding obligation. Third statement is incorrect because India is just a signatory. Next question is the Partnership for Action on Green Economy page. Partnership for Action on Green Economy PAGE page, a United Nations mechanism to assist countries transition towards a greener and more inclusive economies emerged at the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development 2012 Rio de Janeiro. In 2012 Rio Plus 20, the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development was held in Brazil. The conference outcome document entitled The Future We Want was a call to action for governments, businesses and the United Nations alike to support countries interested in the transition to a green economy. PAGE page Partnership for Action on Green Economy was created as the United Nations direct response to this call of action. With reference to Agenda 21 sometimes seen in the news, consider the following statements. It is a global action plan for sustainable development. Second is it originated in the World Summit on Sustainable Development held in Johannesburg 2002. Only one is correct. It is a global action plan for sustainable development. Agenda 21 is a non-binding voluntarily implemented action plan of the United Nations on Sustainable Development. It is a product of a summit United Nations Conference on Environment and Development held in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil in 1992. Hence only statement 1 is correct. Many transplanted seedlings do not grow because most of the root hairs are lost during transplantation. Many transplanted seedlings do not grow because most of the root hairs are lost during transplantation. The function of root hairs is to collect water and mineral nutrients present in the soil and take this solution up through the roots to the rest of the plant. These are made up of cellulose and nominal pectin, which helps it as a gelling agent with the soil. Another reason is the use of fertilizers, which increases the concentration of the soil and make it difficult for plants to absorb water. This situation causes plant cells causing the leaves turn brown. Many transplanted seedlings do not grow because most of the root hairs are lost during transplantation. The function of root hairs is to collect water and minerals nutrients present in the soil and take this solution up through the roots to the rest of the plant. These are made up of cellulose and nominal pectin, which helps it as a gelling agent with the soil. Another reason is the use of fertilizers, which increases the concentration of the soil and make it difficult for plants to absorb water. This situation causes plant cells causing the leaves turn brown. Environmental degradation means overall degradation of the environment attributes, adverse changes brought in by human activities, ecological imbalance because of ecological diversity. Environmental degradation is the deterioration of the environment through depletion of resources such as air, water and soil. Environmental degradation is either natural or by human beings. Which of the following is related to protection of ecological balance? First is Forest Policy, second is Environment Protection Act, third is Industrial Policy, fourth is Educational Policy. Protection of the ecological balance is directly related to the Forest Policy and Environmental Protection Act 1986, while Industrial Policy and Education Policy also include the environmental approach. Thus, the four policies mentioned in the question could be considered as being related to the protection of the ecological balance. Concerning Global Environment Facility, which of the following statements are correct? It serves as the financial mechanism for Convention on Biological Diversity and United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC. The Global Environment Facility (GEF) was established on the eve of the 1992 Rio de Janeiro or Rio Earth Summit to help tackle our planet's most pressing environmental problems. GEF is an international partnership of 184 countries and 18 implementing agencies that address global environmental issues. It is a financial mechanism for five major international conventions: the Minamata Convention on Mercury, the Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutants, the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity, the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, and the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. GEF supports multi-stakeholders alliance to preserve threatened ecosystem on land and in the ocean, build green cities, boost food security for a more prosperous climate resilient world. Carlos Manuel Rodriguez is presently the Chief Executive Officer and Chairperson of the Global Environment Facility. Let us repeat this. The Global Environment Facility (GEF) was established on the eve of the 1992 Rio Earth Summit to help tackle our planet's most pressing environmental problems. GEF is an international partnership of 184 countries and 18 implementing agencies that addresses global environmental issues. It is a financial mechanism for five major international conventions: the Minamata Convention on Mercury, the Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutants, the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity, the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, and the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. GEF supports multi-stakeholders alliance to preserve threatened ecosystem on land and in the ocean, build green cities, boost food security for a more prosperous climate resilient world. Carlos Manuel Rodriguez is presently the CEO and chairperson of the Global Environment Facility. Plachimada or Plachimada, which has been in news for immense damage to its environment, lies in Kerala. Plachimada is a small village in Palakkad district of Kerala. It is situated in Chittoor blocks per Perumatti Panchayat of the district. In 2000, this panchayat gave license to the Hindustan Coca-Cola Beverages Private Limited (SCCBPL) to manufacture Coca-Cola, Coke, and other products which Fanta, Limca, Thumbs Up, Sprite, Kinley, etc. But very soon, due to the contamination of groundwater in that locality by the chemical waste discharged by the company, local people started a small scale protest against the company. Later, this protest was supported by the Panchayat authorities. In the long run, with national as well as international support to this protest against the multinational company MNC, this movement became an icon of other such movement worldwide. Environment Protection Act EPA is also known as umbrella legislation. Environment Protection Act 1986 is also known as umbrella legislation. In the wake of the Bhopal tragedy, the Government of India enacted the Environment Protection Act of 1986 under Article 253 of the Constitution. The Act is an umbrella legislation designed to provide a framework for central government coordination of the activities of various central and state authorities established under previous laws such as Water Act and Air Act. The Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee is constituted under Environment Protection Act 1986. The Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee is constituted under the Environment Protection Act 1986 on 22nd July 2010. Genetic Engineering Approval Committee was renamed as Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee. It is the apex body constituted in the Ministry of Environment and Forest under rule for manufacture, use, import, export and storage of hazardous microorganism or genetically engineered organism or cells 1989 under the Environment Protection Act 1986. With reference to the circumstances in Indian agriculture, the concept of conservation agriculture assumes significance. Which of the following fall under the conservation agriculture? With reference to the circumstances in Indian agriculture, the concept of conservation agriculture assumes significance. Which of the following fall under the conservation agriculture? First is avoiding monoculture practices. Second is adopting minimum tillage. Third is avoiding the cultivation of plantation crops. Fourth is using crop residues to cover the soil surface. Fifth is adopting spatial and temporal crop sequence or crop rotations. Answer C is correct. 2, 4 and 5. That is adopting minimum tillage, using crop residue to cover the soil surface, adopting spatial and temporal crop sequencing or crop rotations. Conservation agriculture CA can be defined by the statement given by the Food and Agriculture Organization FAO of the United Nations as a concept for resource saving agricultural crop production that strives to achieve acceptable profits together with high and sustained production level while concurrently conserving the environment, minimum tillage and soil disturbance. permanent soil cover with crop residues and live mulches or live mulches. Crop rotation and intercropping are the principles of conservation agriculture. As a result of their annual survey, the National Geographic Society and an international polling firm GlobeScan gave India top rank in Green Index or Green Dex 2009 score. What is this score? It is a measure of environmentally sustainable consumer behavior in different countries. National Geographic conducted its inaugural Green Index survey in January 2008. That first Green Index or Green Dex survey of 14 countries around the world ranked average consumers in those countries according to the environmental sustainability of their behavior. Thus, option B will be the right answer. In 2009, India was at first place, and in 2014, too, India retained its position. Which one of the following is the best strategy for environment friendly sustainable development in Indian agriculture? Mixed cropping, organic manures, nitrogen fixing plants, and pest resistant crop varieties. Mixed cropping, organic manures, nitrogen fixing plants, and pest resistant crop varieties are the best strategies for environment friendly sustainable development in Indian agriculture. Consider the following statements. Select the correct answer from the quotes given below. Assertion A: India is a case of a over urbanized country. Our reason: most of the large cities in India do not have adequate infrastructure. A is false, but R is true. According to the census of 2011, approximately 121 crore people, 68.9%, still live in rural areas as compared to 37.7 crores, 31.1% people living in the urban areas. Although the rate of urbanization in India is high, yet the process lacks solution to provide basic infrastructural amenities like drinking water, transport, sanitation, electricity, etc. The investigator of natural farming was Masanobu Fukuoka. Masanobu Fukuoka was a Japanese farmer and philosopher famous for his natural farming and revegetation of desertified lands. Which country introduced the Green Army for Environment Conservation? Australia. The Green Army is a 6-month program for 17 to 24 years old youths in Australia to train and work for the environment. Green Army projects include restoring native vegetation, heritage restoration, protecting animal habitats, and regenerating wetlands in urban, rural, and remote areas. The Green Army programs closed on 30th June 2018. During the mid-80s decade of 20th century, the negative aspects of development were discussed at large. Which one among the following was not such important? Politics and development. And which are among the following such important? First is degradation of natural resources, environment pollution, displacement and rehabilitation of masses. During the mid-80s decade of 20th century, degradation of natural resources, environment pollution, and displacement and rehabilitation of masses were the negative aspect of development discussed at large, but politics and development was not such important. During the mid-80s decade of 20th century, degradation of natural resources, environment pollution, and displacement and rehabilitation of masses were the negative aspect of development discussed at large, but politics and development was not such important. Thank you very much.